Welcome back to another episode of Jolly SEO's TLDR. Today, I am really excited. We have Jacob Bank of Relay.App. You are here to teach us probably more than one thing here today. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm here to teach a little bit and also learn a little bit from you. So hopefully we can do both at the same time.
I'll do my best. Well, I'm really excited because we're a user of your software. Obviously, people have heard of the big names in this space like Zapier, maybe even Make, but we are working with a great automator right now. His name's Dev Chandra, and he turned us on to Relay. And I'm a non-technical founder, and I have found your software to kind of open the doors for me to be allowed to use these tools. So really appreciate you being here to show us a use case.
Yeah, I'm super happy to hear that. We have a long way to go to make the product easier to use and more useful. But I think in this little session, I think in about 20 minutes, we can get something pretty good built. And I think it'll be hopefully useful for a lot of the people watching.
Yeah, exactly. So we are jumping in fast, but what we're gonna do here today is show people how they can build an in-house tool, even if you're a team of one, right? Maybe especially if you're a team of one, to work in the space that Jolly SEO does, which is filtering through the hundreds of daily media opportunities, identifying what is maybe a best fit for you, and queuing them up for your personal review, along with ideally, Jacob, a little bit of a draft based on your personal knowledge base. So you're going to try to download your knowledge into your personal knowledge base and see if we can set that all up somehow in 20 to 25 minutes here.
We're going to do our best. And I think, like I was saying when we were talking before this will be sort of the beginner version that I think if you're a solo person or a founder, this will get you a really good start. And then at some point, you'll need to graduate to the pro version that Greg can help you out with. But this should get you pretty far.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but I'm really excited for this. I love the DIY space. For our little space, it's an awesome place to be in where you don't need us, and I think you're going to empower a lot of people right now. So
Cool.
I think without further ado, I'll turn the
Let me
mic over
just
to
show
you.
Yeah, let me just show you the setup. So I'll share my screen and I'll share my Gmail. And so I'm subscribed to this service called Help a B2B Writer that actually, Greg, you turned me onto. And what it does is, depending on what category you say you have some interest or knowledge about, it'll send you one or multiple opportunities every day where some writer is looking to include a quote from some expert in a blog post. You see that I have a few different topics I'm subscribed to: SaaS, management, AI, marketing, entrepreneurship, content marketing, AI. And each of these has, one or a couple emails per day. But you can see that, like, manually going through all of these every day to try to figure out which ones I want to reply to, because the quality is highly variable, is a ton of work. So let me just show you one example so you can get a sense.
This is the number
Um,
one pain point for a lot of people in this space, Jacob, is
yeah. So here's an example, and it shows the name of the writer, the publication they're writing for. In many cases, it shows the domain authority, so you can kind of get a sense of the SEO backlink value of it. It says who is looking for, and then the request is, what are your best strategies for improving your growth rate, and why is calculating growth rate important? And then it gives you a deadline, and then an email address to submit a quote to. So I personally don't think I'm the right person to answer this question, so I would not submit a reply. Maybe in AI, I could give a better answer to this question, like one thing that made it hard to keep a project on track. I could definitely give a good answer to this question, and 69 is a pretty solid domain authority. So I think I would want to answer this opportunity. And so what we want to have this workflow do is, it's going to read all of these emails that they come in. As they come in, it's going to use AI to analyze each opportunity, and it's going to try to figure out which opportunity is a good fit for me. Not just a good fit in general, but a good fit for me based on what I know about and where I can add value, because the quote is only as valuable as I can make it to the audience. And so what the workflow we're going to build is going to do this filtering, and then it's also going to provide a draft of a quote that could be relevant. But then critically, we want a human in the loop at the end to make sure that it's really in your voice and communicating what you ought to communicate before sending it back. So let's just dive in, and I'm going to show you the Relay.App experience of how to create this. So the first thing is, I'm going to name this, and I'm going to say this is a demo, which is respond to quote requests. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is add a trigger. And the trigger is what's going to tell our automation or our AI like when to wake up and start doing work. And in this case, I want to wake up every time an email is received in Gmail. You can see I have a lot of apps connected. So every time an email is received in Gmail, that's going to go into that label. And I called that label HARO because I used to use the service help a reporter out. But you can use whatever label or whatever filter that you want. You could even, if you don't have a label set up, you could even just use the filter subject contains source request, because I think all of the ones from that service contain source request. And then you can see in this little trigger preview dialog, these are all the items that this would have triggered for in the past. So I can see that I have this filter set up correctly because it's triggering for exactly the emails I would have expected it to trigger for.
Yeah, I was going to say the same,
Now,
Jacob. It's so fast, it's awesome for someone non-technical like myself. The preview box lets you know if you're on the right track almost immediately.
the preview box thing is critical. I cannot tell you the number of times I've messed up my filters and I felt so confidently wrong that I was going to get the right stuff that like it's really worth double checking the preview box until you get the filter right. So the next thing that's really important for these sort of personalized content creation or content filtering use cases is I have to give the AI something about me and what I've said and what I know about to give it a chance to do a good job. And so I actually created a Google Doc. I've done a few podcast appearances. And so I basically just created a Google Doc with just the raw transcript of my various podcast appearances. Because it turns out, like when I'm on a podcast, I talk about a bunch of stuff, and it's a good way to get kind of my voice and the things I know about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Relay to look up this document and then reference it when it's using AI to decide whether a quote is a good fit, a quote request is a good fit for me. So I'm going to add a step. I'm going to find that document in my Google Docs because I'm going to need to reference that document. And the filter I'm going to use is I'm just going to filter based on title because I know exactly what title I want. It's knowledge base from podcast interviews.
And this is
If
similar, by the
yeah,
way, Jacob, to what we do as a done-for-you provider. So I think you're
yeah,
exactly on the right track. If anyone's doing this themselves and it's tiring to think about, geez, what do I know that is relevant to
right.
this? This is an awesome strategy. You can do this with
Yeah,
your
because
own
like
blog posts.
if you ask me to write down from scratch, write a comprehensive document of everything you know or could comment on.
Overwhelming.
Where would I even start with that?
Yeah.
So it's good to feed it kind of some source material, and then I could expand upon this over time.
Yep.
And then another really important thing is I just want to test that it was able to find this document. So I'm going to test this step and that it correctly found that document. So now I've got a good start here. I've got the email that I want to classify, and I've got the document that's got my knowledge. Now comes the most important step, which is going to ask AI to put those two things together to figure out if it's a good fit for me. And so to do that, many of you are probably familiar with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and have typed prompts into like that web UI, the chatbot. We're going to do the exact same thing here, but we're going to do it in the context of this automatically running workflow. So we're still going to use a prompt, but we're going to reference the information that we have here from the email and from the document. So I'm going to press the plus button again. I'm going to select AI this time, and I'm going to select the first option, prompt any model. And so when you're setting up an AI step, the prompt box, the instructions for the AI, that'll look familiar to you to ChatGPT. But there's a couple things that are different about using AI in the context of an agent or a workflow. In addition to the prompt itself, you need to give it the input data, what it needs to reference to do its job, and then you need to set up the output. And so I'm going to show you how to do that all in one. So first, let's write the instructions. So I'll say, given a request for a quote and a knowledge base in the form of the attached document, please decide the following. Do I, Jacob, have any unique and valuable perspectives on this topic? AKA, should I reply to the request for a quote?
I was going to
Two,
make this so much more complicated. I thought you would need
yeah.
to build multiple steps, but you're wrapping it all in the prompt.
I'm going to try to do it all in one and let's see if it works. Do I have anything? Maybe I'll make it a little, this is going to be a very high bar. So do I, Jacob, have anything useful to say in response to this question? AKA, should I reply to this request for a quote? And number two, could you write a draft of a reply in my voice? So we're asking it two questions. Yes or no, should I reply? And can you write a draft? And now the prompt looks super simple, but the reason the prompt can be simple is a bunch of the useful data is going to be in the email and in the attached Google Doc. So let me attach those now. I'm going to attach the email and I'm going to attach the document so that the AI can reference both of those. And then the output, I could ask for plain text like you'd get from ChatGPT, but in this case, I actually want structured output because I want a couple different decisions. I want the yes, no decision, and then I also want the draft. So I'm going to ask for structured data. And it can be sometimes hard to think about what structured data that you want to get. But if you've done a good job writing your prompt, I don't know if you've used this feature, Greg, but like the AI can actually do a pretty good job of figuring out what it thinks you want. So if you press the generate from prompt button, what I'm hoping it'll say is, I want a yes or no field of should I reply? and a text field of the draft reply. So just based on the prompt, the AI was able to figure out, here's what you want. You want a yes or no, and you want a draft reply. And so now I can continue my workflow based on that AI assisted response. So first, if I should not reply, I just want to end the run. I don't want to do any more work. Sorry, wasn't a good opportunity for me. End the run. So I'm gonna make another step that just says end run if, stop working, stop doing everything. If the AI said should reply is no. If
That
the AI
finance
says you should
query,
reply,
for example, right?
stop.
Yeah.
And now if the AI said we should reply, we have to do something additional. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to draft an email, create an email draft. And I can't remember, I don't think you actually reply to the email. I think the email has a different email address that you need to send to. So I'm
Correct.
going to create a draft and I'm going to send it as myself. And I'm going to send it to, oh, I need to get that email address. If you remember back in these emails, they give you a specific email address for the reply. I need to get that out of the email. So I'm going to go back and ask my AI for one more thing. I'm going to ask it to also get the email address that we're supposed to send to. What is the email address we're supposed to send quotes to? And I'm just going to add an output and I'm going to add an email address and I'm going to say address to send quote. And now that I have that email address, I can use that as the to address in my step here. So it's going to automatically send the email to the right address. And the subject, maybe I'll just be like reply to quote request. And maybe I want to include some more information. I'll just say reply to quote request for now. We could make the subject better if we wanted to stand out among all the other quote requests.
We'll get
And the
back to
body
this, but just to
yeah,
insert a quick tip from my angle, Jacob,
yeah,
what you want to do is reference the knowledge base and the summary of this opportunity. You want to see if you can combine those because that subject line, we never want to lie in our space. We never want to state anything that are factually incorrect, but this is the conversion aspect of what we do.
right.
It's like not clickbaity, but as close to it as you can get while
Yeah.
remaining accurate. So why are
How
you
about this? How about we
uniquely,
ask how
yeah,
about we riff on what you're saying here? We ask the AI to say, please output a compelling subject line about
how
my
you're
quote
qualified
and
to,
why I'm a qualified source,
there you
something
go.
like that.
Let's try.
And let's add this text again, and let's call this the subject. And then we can just plop the AI generated subject in here. Again, we're going to edit this before it goes out. So the AI is just creating a draft for us here. It's not going to send it automatically. It's just creating a draft. So we have the AI drafted subject, and then we have the AI drafted reply. And that's it. We made it.
This is awesome.
Now, should we go through and run it and see if it works?
We have to. I'm so curious.
Okay, and let's see if it works. So I'm going to start a test run, and I want to pick the one that I thought I would actually have something useful to say about, which was
That's
this one. This is about, effective software development project. Let me pick this one, and I'm going to create a test run. Oh, cancel that. Okay, now I have a test run over here, and we're going to just be able to see what the AI is doing as it goes. So let's see what it does. So first, it's going to look up my knowledge base. It found that pretty quickly. Now the AI is going to try to answer all those questions I asked. And I asked it for some pretty tough stuff. I was like, should I reply? What should I reply? What's the email address? What's the subject of the email? Like I asked it for quite a lot of stuff and I didn't give it that much information. So let's see how good of a job it can do.
And you kept it pretty, by my words, I'd say vague. Like I would have thought I needed to really detail the rules for should I reply, but you left it in its hands for now. Is that intentional because this is an MVP or is
That's intentional as a starting point. Yeah. What I always recommend is like start vague. And if the AI can do it, then great.
let it
My
run?
guess is that your intuition is correct, that the instructions I gave it are not going to be precise enough for the AI to really be able to figure it out. I'm going to need to give it a little bit more guidance.
So but the worst case here, you might end up drafting a little too many replies to review, and then you dial it in.
And it might be tuned a little too aggressively or tuned a little too cautiously. And that's where, I think the most important thing is you need to think of this as a living system. It's like an employee. It's like constantly the kinds of things you want to comment on are changing. Your knowledge is changing. Your company situation is changing. The quotes people are asking you for are changing. And so you're going to need to constantly be tuning this to map to current reality. But let's take a look at what this did. Okay, so the AI said, I should draft a reply. It got, let me just see if it got the correct address for this AI one. Let's see. It was reply.recjiy something. Does that look? Yeah, that
Yeah,
looks
we look
roughly
good.
right.
Yeah,
Subject is a little bland. Insights from a tech leader navigating project challenges with AI. So we're going to need to go back and edit that prompt to say maybe a better thing to say would be like former Google exec and AI startup CEO says blah. Like, and Greg,
there
you
you
can
go.
help us probably write a way better prompt for that.
You
But
you
let's
want
see
to
what.
name drop Google? I think you're okay. You did good
Yeah,
work
yeah,
there.
yeah. So let's see what this draft reply. So I'm opening it in my real Gmail. This is a real draft from me, and let me open it full screen so we can see it a little bit better. It says, one challenge I face in managing software is aligning cross-functional teams, especially when dealing with AI integration. Everyone needed to adapt to new AI-driven workflows, which initially disrupted traditional processes. Ensuring all team members understood AI's role and benefit was crucial. A crowd blend of clear communication, consistent training, iterative feedback loops. The approach not only streamlined operations, but also empowered teams to leverage AI effectively. So this is not great, but it's not terrible. Like it's a bit bland, but I could definitely take this draft and work with it because it's hitting on kind of an important theme here, which is that like AI is changing things quickly and we need to rethink some of the ways we used to do things. And so what I would probably do if I was doing this for real, I would say, for example, I used to read all of these SEO emails manually. Then I realized I could use AI to help, which, was disruptive for the people who had been doing that work. It didn't know my surname and it didn't know my LinkedIn URL. And so,
Very
so
cute.
I would
Yeah,
say I would give this like a B minus. It correctly identified that this was a quote, that this was a topic that I'm interested in and care about. That's pretty cool. It did all of the hard work of like creating the email address, the draft to the right address, and it put in the right kind of salutation and the right closing. Now, let me just go through once and edit the prompt to make it a little bit better and see how far that gets us.
yeah.
So
I
I'm going
mean,
to go back over to
just
my
to
prompt.
underscore that, Jacob, I think where you're coming from here, for someone who's trying to get these out themselves, it did also a huge favor to you. It brainstormed, and you
Yeah,
immediately reading that, you were like, I remember this challenge.
because
That's
I
not
would have had a terrible blank slate problem. If you ask me, what is a challenge you faced in project management? There are so many that I almost don't know where to start. But what the AI told me is, hey, AI is changing the way we run things internally, and that can be really disruptive to people who are used to their past way of doing things. I'm like, oh wow, that's actually a pretty good theme that's timely to talk about that I might not have thought of on my own, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason I really wanted to do this sit down with you is because of how you just reacted to it. You didn't hit, this is great, let's hit send. And for people who don't know, you were actually doing Help a Reporter out before our service even existed, right? You were doing it yourself.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
the,
About many years ago. Yeah.
the people on the other end get hundreds, if not more, replies every day.
Yeah.
And they can see who's just hitting send directly, and they
Yeah.
can tell who's writing these as a human. And so the way you're setting this up for a draft for human review, that's absolutely, I mean, it's awesome how fast you set this up. Let's not fool ourselves. You own the app, you know it inside and
I
out.
spend I spend all day in this tool, but the hope is that, and we'll launch a template for this so that people can just import it with one
That's
click.
right.
Because I want people to spend their time adapting this prompt, not
That's right.
adapting kind of like I want the workflow overall to just work. And I want people to spend time thinking about what is my unique voice? What is my unique qualification? What is the unique set of quotes that I want to apply to? So here's some opportunities for improvement. We noticed that subject was bad. So let me just give it an
Yeah.
example of a good subject.
Yeah.
For example, like ex Google, so Google, former Google exec and AI startup founder, thoughts on LLMs or something.
Yep.
And that's
Yeah.
just saying, hey, lean into my, credentials and past experience, and then say something about, the topic that was requested. Also, in your reply, make sure to include the following signature: Jacob Bank, founder/CEO, Relay.App, and then my LinkedIn profile.
Is it
And let
how
me just,
gratifying is it to you to see how quickly the improvements can come? Because most people write off this stuff as it's just too stupid to do anything
yeah.
with. But it's like
I
you
mean,
said, you have to treat it as a new
that's the
hire.
thing I always say. Imagine if you hired a sophomore in college intern, and the first time you asked them to do a project, they didn't do it perfectly, and you just said, "You're fired. You're stupid." Like that's not that's
Yeah.
not how we treat people. Like we give them some leash and some guidance, and then I also want to say if there's a specific story you can reference, that's way better. Try to make it more punchy and detailed and less generic. Let's see, I might not have a story for this particular use case in that one podcast appearance, but I think this is going to generally give us a better result. So let me
For
try this
everyone
again.
listening, Jacob, another great source is all of your on-site blog content, or
Totally.
if you can get a list of all your off-site, kind of like your similar podcast idea. This is what we have done for years manually. The old-fashioned way is we ask the clients, what are your favorite articles you put out? And we always source those when we draft
Yeah,
pitches.
totally. And if you get serious about this, either, working with someone like Greg or doing it on your own, really put time into curating that knowledge base because
Yeah.
your responses, this will only work as well as the knowledge base that you give it of your content. So let's try another test run with that same request and see if it does better this time.
Yeah, this is a really fun one. Obviously, after a while, you stop watching it work, but the first few times that you do runs, you're like, oh my God, it's really working right now. Especially some of them where it does like 30 iterations of a prompt. It's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like watching it now, it's excruciating. It feels so slow. Like I'm like, go
Yeah,
faster. But the
you're
important
on the
thing to keep
clock.
in mind is that like in reality, when this is running, it'll be running behind the scenes when you're not even aware of it. So it's actually okay if it takes a couple minutes, if
Yeah,
it's more likely to get the right answer at the end of those couple minutes.
yeah, yeah.
And
And
I
this,
think the last time we ran this, it took maybe like 30 seconds or something. So I'd expect that again. Another thing that you could do right now, I'm relying on Relay.App to pick the model that it thinks it's right.
mm,
If you're a more advanced user, you might know that specific AI models are better at specific things. For example, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is really good at writing. It's more expensive, but really good at writing. Whereas maybe you want to go, if you have a huge knowledge base, you'd want to go with a Gemini model because it's quite a bit cheaper. Okay, so it finished. Let's see. Let's see what it did this time. Okay. So it didn't really do a better job with the subject. It still said tech leader's perspective. I would
yeah,
want to go back to that prompt again and say, hey, really lean into my
name drop.
credentials,
Yeah,
like name drop Google, name drop our investors.
yeah. But that could all be in your knowledge base. You could have a section of subject line to riff off of, kind of thing.
Exactly. So it did a little bit better here. It got
It knows
the
who you
the
are. Yeah.
it got the closing right. So I think that probably gives people a good starting point to get to. I think if for me, I would probably want to spend another 30 minutes or so really iterating on that prompt to see how
Yeah.
good I could get it. But what we just did now in whatever the last 15, 20 minutes, that's already a huge value add for me because it's doing a bunch of filtering. It's setting up the basics of the draft. It's giving me an idea of what I want to talk about. It's giving me something, I always find it's way easier to edit a couple sentences that are already written than to write my own 2 sentences from scratch. And so I might up it from like a B minus to a B based on that little prompt iteration we did. And I bet in another 30 minutes, I could get it to an A minus.
Well, there's in writing, I don't know if you've heard this phrase, but there's a phrase for everyone who's, this is just too shitty for me to work with. There's a phrase called shitty first draft. And
Yeah.
that is the sole intent is to get words on the paper and then later you can edit those words. And so all it's doing for you is removing the writer's block, which doesn't need to exist because your sole job as a writer is to get those shitty words out
Yeah,
and
and
later
and I
critique
have
them.
to tell you, emotionally, like when I wake up and I see, like I'm groggy, I'm getting out of bed, I see those 20 emails coming in, I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with those now. So
It's a
just like
lot.
taking some of that cognitive load from me, giving me a starting point,
Yeah.
messaging me a little later in the day, it's, hey, we did find actually 2 things you might want to comment on today. Here's quick drafts, edit them or discard them. I think for people who are just dipping their toe into this way of thinking about SEO or getting their name out there, I hope it can make it a lot less intimidating.
Oh, it's really cool. It got me excited to think about so many other use cases, but I like how focused we were today. I think for anyone watching this who's on the fence, should you set this up or not? I was also astounded, and I'm sure as you grow it'll change, but the cost structure is extremely affordable right now to play with. There are some instances where we had one where I went to sleep and then it ran and did 45 runs, and I was like, oh, that was funny. But it wasn't that it blew all of our bank account. It was just our tier got maxed out, and then I realized we needed to fix something. So that was very welcome relief when I
Yeah,
saw
and so the way we think about it is first, the free tier should add value and let you figure out if you want the service. So on the free tier, you get 200 steps per month and 500 AI credits. Let me see how many AI credits this particular one took. Yeah, this one took about 70 AI credits, and I'm sure I could tune it to make it fewer, but this would basically give you like, 6 or 7
Yeah,
replies to work
yeah,
with to see if you like it on the free tier. And again, you could tune it down to make it even cheaper. Oh, and these test runs I'm doing, those don't count against your credits because we want you to figure out if you can use the thing
very
before
cool.
you start getting charged for it. Then if we've given you 6 quotes and it's really valuable to you, then the basic tier is 20 bucks a month,
Yeah.
which we think is a price point that's accessible to a wide variety of startups and small businesses. And then my guess is if this is the only use case you're doing, that tier includes 750 steps and 2000 AI credits.
10,
So my
12.
guess is that basic tier, if this is all you're doing, that's probably all you need for a month. And then I know for your usage, Greg, and for us internally, we've now expanded to other use cases, but we try to make it such that testing it for free is a no-brainer. The
Yeah.
basic tier is a no-brainer. And that when you do hit usage limits, your reaction is like, wow, we're getting a lot of value for this. So of course we should pay another $5 a month or $10 a month. Not they're really putting the screws into me and exploiting their position.
No, I love it. We've got a couple other use cases already live, but many more we're planning. I really appreciate your time today, Jacob, and it's been awesome connecting over email. So thank you very much. I usually have a slew of questions in a traditional interview, but this was such a fun exercise. There's one last question that's still relevant. I always like
Yeah.
to ask a guest, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, that you're like, it would have been good if we had jammed this in there?
I think the key thing we should talk about is what is AI ready to do today? What is it not ready to do today? But where is it going tomorrow?
Yeah,
And because I think that's something that when you're on LinkedIn or on Twitter, it's very easy to get seduced into one of these extreme but wrong perspectives. That's AI is all overhyped. It's totally useless. Don't touch it at all. Please don't have that opinion. That's not going to serve you well.
yeah.
Or the opinion that's like, AGI is coming. We should all be plumbers. Like there is no value in knowledge work anymore. And I think the right answer right now is, of course, somewhere in between that. So the way I would think about it is, what are the kind of tasks you would give to a really bright mid college, like sophomore, junior in college intern? They don't have a lot of experience. They probably won't know about your business exactly. So don't ask them to write your personal bio. Like they may not be experts in SEO and backlinks, though, but they could learn pretty fast. If you say, hey, go research SEO and backlinks, go learn about that. They probably won't write a perfect draft in your voice the first day, but by the end of the first week, they'll probably do a really good job filtering out these requests and writing at least a directionally right draft. The thing that's really cool about it is with a human, with an intern, it would take a week because you're busy, you're running your business. Like, how many hours a day do you have to spend with your intern? You have maybe a few minutes here, a few minutes there, you give a little feedback there, they go off, spend a day drafting something. Whereas with the AI, you saw this, we just did 2 iterations in 5 minutes and it
That's right.
learns really fast because it has the whole world's knowledge available to it. And so the way I would think about it right now is anything that you would get off your plate or off your team's plate by hiring a really bright college intern to do, you should really spend an hour trying to see if you can get AI to do it.
First.
And then I'm optimistic that a year or two from now, it'll go to what a really good new grad could do. And then what a really good, 5-year experience pro could do. And then maybe better than what you could do. But it's important because the technology is moving so fast, we always have to recalibrate. But I encourage everyone to stay in the middle between it's useless and it can do everything. And the best way to figure this out is not to listen to me or read a blog post. It's just to play with it. Like just try it. Just write a prompt and see if it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, Jacob. Thank you so much. I hope we can do this again. This taught
Yeah.
me a thing or two for sure, but I hope it inspires someone to get out there, try to build something, like you said, play with it a little bit.
Yeah, this was a blast. And anyone who's listening, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/JacobBank, or directly over email, jacob@relay.app. And I'd love to help you build your first AI workflow.
Yeah, no, Relay.App has been huge for us, so I'm really, really excited about the future with that one.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Greg. Great to chat. And yeah, let's do it again soon.
Perfect. See you around.